Good evening. This is Woodstock Mayapple Writers Retreat. I think this is year 22. And it began as the Rust Belt Retke Writers Retreat in Saginaw, Michigan, and moved here in 2012. And during COVID, it went online as a Zoom event, and then it became a hybrid. Participants have come from as far away as St. Thomas, U.S. Virgin Islands, Arkansas, Utah, Chicago, and this year includes people from the Hudson Valley, the Ozarks, and the southern tier of New York, and the U.S. Virgin Islands again. Our first reader, who is from the Ozarks, is Wendy Taylor Carlisle. She lives and writes in the Arkansas Ozarks, and she's the author of 4 books and 5 chapbooks, and the winner of the 2020 Philip H. McMath Post-Publication Award for her book, The Mercy of Traffic. Last June, Doubleback Books reprinted her 2008 book, Discount Fireworks, as a free download. This year, Bell Point Press reissued her first book, Reading Berryman to the Dog, and a chapbook-length selection of her work appeared in Wild Muse, Ozarks Nature Poetry from Cornerstone Press. And I am going to highlight Wendy and take myself off.
Hi, you guys. Since we were talking about I was going to read the prose poems that I have this year at the workshop, but when I started to read them, I couldn't get all the way through them without coughing. So we're going to try shorter poems. This is Solar Eclipse 2024. On the day of the solar eclipse, we went over to Larry's and sat on his upstairs deck and waited for the not quite dark to come on. Ruth came along and David made a pinhole camera thing out of a big box and put his head in it. Ruth and I wore those dime store glasses we paid too much for. On the whole, it was anticlimactic. We had decided not to drive south among the hordes from Missouri and Oklahoma to see the whole of the eclipse in Russellville. The folks we knew who had done that described it as eerie and magical, etc. On Larry's deck, it was dim. We friends were pleased to have had some part of the experience everybody was talking about, Earth's satellite sliding in and out of sunlight. Thus the moon came and went without ferment, then passed on its way, much as we will, although we didn't think of that at the time. And now a couple from a new anthology, which I've been arguing with myself about publicizing this. It's called When a Woman Tells the Truth, Writings and Creative Work by Women Over 80. So you can see, it's not something I want to wave in the breeze, but, oh, this is what it looks like. It looks like this, backwards. And these are the poems that I have in that. About being old. I don't often write about being old, but the former century is at the bottom of every day. The residue in the teapot, the cobweb I didn't see when I was on the ladder, armadillo in the garden, scything away at the pepper plants. It's not as if I don't remember my son's formula breath or holding my grandson's hostage on my lap, but I've been wary of child gossip and nursery confession. More often I write sex and loss, the one mostly over, the other hissing out slowly like a gas leak. Don't misunderstand. Not love songs about the damn moon, but hard breath and sweat and mean shoes, oh, and drinking, shutting the bar down. Still, aspiration and curiosity remain, the donkey work of lyric, meanwhile swiping the cobweb, swallowing the leaves stuck at the bottom of the cup. And then I know who's going to appreciate this one. Second wave. Here we are, the girls who bonded reading our bodies ourselves, who checked our vaginas in hand mirrors and were surprised. who were taught by our mothers to be wary of girlfriends, our enemies in the war for men and territory, taught that desire was man's privilege and that joy was impossible without his embrace. Now, on the other side of hormones, we see our mothers lied like presidents. And then August, since we're here, an Ozark sonnet. August, ripe as a peach, convinces us there's still time for travel. August holds on by a fingernail as summer fails. August feels hotter because of accretion and span. July is hotter by the numbers. August trees have grown dusty in air thick and sweet as taffy. August outshines the previous sultry. Its wind rouses your nose to what's coming. August reports back from Fecundity Central. Report shows harvest to follow. August is the fading profile on a worn coin. Summer is that coin, vanishing. And then last, we're gonna try this one. See if I can get through it. Rumor. To write about Ozark summer, oh, I have to stop right here and tell you that a lick log was an old farmer's trick to make the cows weigh more. You'd let them lick salt and then you take them down and to the river and let them drink water and they'd weigh more when you went to sell them. So, rumor. To write about Ozark summer, you have to have the animal memory of swelter, of low water, of dry sumps, of deer come close to the cow pond, of cattle down to the lick log, of no burn signs everywhere. You have to remember 2012, the second hottest year on record, or 1956, which by word of mouth was the first. But this summer I'm writing about was the worst summer since Satan fell, or so we thought. The cities simmered to a boil in their tarmac, bubbling down to heat stroke. Everywhere preachers promised Armageddon like always and used 110 degrees for proof. With no air condition, it was too hot to make love, even with fans at the head and foot of the bed, making a middle turbulence. We couldn't move after noon or sleep before midnight. How many hours can a person spend at Hart's pushing a wire cart through the cans and bottles? 15 minutes to choose a sponge, a half an hour for a soft drink that only stays chilled straight out of the cooler box. Winter was a rumor that summer. Under each overheated scarp, we searched for anything cold and hid what we found. It may be that we were brown and swam it. It may be when we could, we stepped down from the cliff into the icy river water, imagining ourselves Cherokee just passing through, or Quapaw, or settlers who learned long ago to make some peace with the heat. Let's just say the weather sweated us, and we got no relief from those jumped up preachers. Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
We're clapping.
Yes,
Oh,
and Leslie are clapping. That was great, and you managed the voice. That was terrific. Terrific. Okay, let's see. Where did my remove spotlight? All right. So our next reader is Patricia Harkins-Pierre, who teaches at the University of the Virgin Islands in St. Thomas. Nobel Prize winner Derek Walcott mentored her during her PhD program in creative writing. Patricia represented the U.S. Virgin Islands in London at a week-long event linked to the 2012 Summer Olympics. Her collection, Prophets of Morning Light, includes poems she completed at the Mayapple Writers Retreat because she's one of our party regulars who comes back a lot. And I am going to find her picture here so that, where'd she go? There you are. Okay. I'm going to ask you to unmute if I can figure out how to do that from here. Damn, what did they do to this system?
Improved it.
They didn't, but I can't ask her to unmute without getting out of Spotlight. Now I'm asking you to unmute.
Did that work?
Now it did, and now I'm spotlighting it.
Okay. Well, this is one of these times for us, as it often is with technology, wonderful as it can be. So that means everything I thought I was going to do tonight didn't work out. So I have what I can do, and that'll be fun. And what I did was I was looking back because is next year the 25th anniversary?
I don't think so. I have to do
No.
something.
Okay. 22nd, something like that. Okay. But anyway, I remembered once upon a time when you got very enthusiastic, energetic, and you published a beautiful little volume called Greenhouse. Remember that? The first 5 years of the rescue. Okay. So I was looking at that today, and the story that was published in that is one of I use with my students often, and they love that story. It was translated into Spanish by a dear friend here who recently died kind of mysteriously in Mexico. But I'm going to dedicate it to her, but I'm going to read it in English, not Spanish, because I couldn't read it in Spanish if I wanted to. And it's short. So that's good. It's good to read aloud in that sense. It won't be too long. And I have a short piece, I don't know what to call it, flash fiction, prose poem, something that my older students enjoy. The younger ones have no idea what I'm talking about in part of it. But I love to share it. And I wanted to dedicate it to the friend who meant to be here with us tonight, but she hasn't been able to get in to do that. So that's okay. So the story is called The Girl Who Hugged Trees. I probably know this one by heart, but I'm still going to read it. I was once a girl who hugged trees, and every day on the way home from school, I danced down the sidewalks, singing aloud to the glory of God. When my older sister, Annie, laughed at me, I didn't care. When my mother told me to stop acting crazy, I only smiled. I knew God loved me just as I was. Grammy O'Reilly, who lived upstairs, told me so. Every day when I got home from school, I ran up the steps to her apartment and knocked on her red door. We'd sit together on her wobbly couch and watch TV, sometimes game shows, sometimes talk shows, but never soap operas or news. Annie said Granny was boring, but Annie never sat still long enough to listen to Grammy's stories or sing old songs with her. I liked to comb Grammy's long white hair before she pinned it on top of her head like a queen's crown. Sometimes, on sunny days, we would walk to the park together, with Grammy's fat Pekingese dog, Sweetie, straining on her leash between us. Mama couldn't understand why Grammy was so attached to Sweetie. That dog is less than useless, and she certainly isn't sweet, she complained to Daddy. Your mother spends a small fortune on vet bills, all for an asthmatic old dog that pees on the carpets and is so ungrateful she literally bites the hand that feeds her. The next time she even snaps at Annie or Gail or me, I'm taking her straight to the pound and demand they put that dog to sleep. When I told Grammy what Mama said, she scooped Sweetie up in her arms, ignoring how Sweetie squirmed and growled at her. I suppose your mama would like to get rid of me too, she said fiercely. I'm certainly getting old, and as far as she can tell, I'm probably worse than useless. Don't worry, Grammy, I said, while I cautiously patted Sweetie's rump. You never get sick and you never bite anybody. Grammy smiled. True enough, she agreed. And Sweetie may nip, but she never bites anybody. Well, maybe she did bite Annie that once, but Annie was teasing her, that's all. We never mentioned Mama's threat again. But I noticed Grammy was careful to keep Sweetie shut up in the bedroom whenever Mama or Annie came upstairs, which fortunately wasn't very often. Mama didn't approve of Grammy's influence on me. That child already has more imagination than is good for her. Without your mother filling her head with more nonsense, she told my father. She should be playing with other children, not spending so much time with one old woman who doesn't seem to know the difference between fantasy and facts. Daddy refused to listen. You're talking about my mother, the first woman I ever loved, the woman who raised me all on her own after Papa died, the same woman who gave us this house we live in now, And she loves Gail as much as she always loved me. You know that, Angie. Mama didn't bother to argue. But one day, when I ran upstairs after school and knocked on Grammy's door, she didn't answer. Grammy, I called as loud as I could. Still no answer. I dropped my backpack on the landing and began to pound on the door with both fists. Gail O'Reilly, stop making that racket this minute. Do you hear? Do you want the whole neighborhood to know our business? Annie was standing on the top step, her hands on her narrow hips. You're coming with me right now, downstairs. I want to see Grammy, I sniffled, ignoring my big sister. Don't be such a crybaby, she said sharply. Grammy doesn't want to see anybody right now, not even Daddy. Slowly, I followed Annie downstairs. Mama and Daddy were sitting at the kitchen table. Come here, little one, Daddy said. He held me close. Your Grammy is very sad right now. She wants to be alone. I waited for him to explain why. Tell the child the truth, Will. Mama's voice was so low I could barely hear her. When I looked at her, she avoided my eyes. It's my fault, Grammy is sad, she explained. And suddenly I knew what was wrong. I stared at her. Mama held out her left hand. It was wrapped in a white bandage. I went upstairs to take Grammy some mail. That's all. When I saw she had another bill from the vet, I was so angry. And when she opened her door and that stupid dog growled at me, I swatted it hard, right on the nose with a magazine. And that vicious little beast sank her teeth right into my wrist. I shook my head. No. Yes, Mama said. I just thank God it was me she bit and not you or Annie. Where's Sweetie? I was shaking. What did you do with her? I pulled away from Daddy. She's gone, Gail, Mama told me. She'll never bite anyone else again. You don't have to be afraid. I can promise you that. She was a dangerous dog. Someday you'll understand. I stood very still. Go wash your hands, Mama said. Then I want you and Annie to clean up your room before supper. No, I said. Mama lifted her right hand as though she were going to slap me. Gail, do what I tell you right now. No, I repeated. I didn't flinch. Daddy stepped between us. That's enough, he said. Annie, go start your homework. Gail and I are going upstairs to see Grammy. Mama turned away without another word. I didn't speak to her again for 3 days. Even after Grammy forgave her, I didn't. Let's run away, I suggested to Grammy. She sighed and stroked my hair. Where to, little one? You're too young to run away from home, and I'm too old. Mama was sure the best cure for Grammy's grief was a new pet. Do you want a new dog, Grammy? I asked her. Not really, she confessed. Sweetie was mine for a long time. She wasn't always so cross. But as she got old, she never felt very well, I think. When I told Mama what Granny had said, she just frowned and shook her head. If your mother is too stubborn to let us give her a new dog, maybe a cat or even a bird like Annie has will do the trick, she insisted. Daddy tried over and over to make her understand that Grammy wasn't ready. It's too soon, Annie. Let her mourn in peace, please, Angelina. Oh, and just exactly how much time do you think she needs? When she put her hands on her hips and tossed her head, Mama looked just like my big sister when she was annoyed. Only God knows, Daddy said. Maybe 3 months? Or maybe 3 years, Mama said. Or maybe forever, that stubborn old woman. Mama waited 2 months, but early on Christmas morning, while we all sat around our tree and opened gifts after coming home from midnight mass, Mama put an unwelcome surprise into Grammy's lap. Not a puppy, but a tiny white kitten with a red velvet bow around its neck. For you, Mother O'Reilly, she said brightly with her best dimpled smile. I was sitting on a pillow at Grammy's feet. No, thank you, Grammy said. You've made a mistake. This is a perfect present, but not for me. Hold out your hands, my Gail. Slowly, looking up at Mama, I obeyed. Grammy held out the purring kitten. I give her to you. Treat her with love. Mama's dimples had disappeared. My sister wasn't smiling either. I'm the oldest, she said, tossing her head. Gail's too young to take care of the kitten. It should be mine. Daddy put his arm around his older daughter. Mama gave the kitten to Grammy, and Grammy is free to give her to Gail if she wants to. You already have a pet, remember, Princess? Annie sulked, but she stopped complaining. Mama just raised her eyebrows. Well, What are you going to name your cat? She asked me. Sweetie, I said. Grammy never did have another pet, but I grew to love my little cat almost as much as she grew to love me. However, soon Mama was sorry she'd ever rescued my Sweetie from the Humane Society. That animal is more trouble than she's worth, she'd say at least once a day. For though Sweetie was devoted to me, she only tolerated everyone else, except sometimes Grammy. And much to Mama's chagrin, I insisted on sleeping with Sweetie every night, and Daddy refused to insist otherwise. I don't know who has the worst influence on Gail, Mama told him, her hands on her hips. You, your mother, or that dratted cat. Ta-da. So,
Great story.
yeah, that's what I mean. I remember that story so well, Judy, because it's the only thing I've ever written at your workshop where you said I didn't have to do much revision on it. I was like so happy. I was like, oh, good. It hasn't happened since, however. This other one this is even,
It's your
yeah,
time. Do you have a poem or something short?
yes, this is just flash fiction. It's less than a page, and I'll stop with that. So I'm not going to go on and on. Don't worry.
Okay.
This is called Secrets, and this is the one I want to see how many people understand the literary allusion. Some of the names I use that my students had no clue. It's called Secrets. 1982. You were only 15 once, my cousin Anne said, and I should know. I'm 17. She handed me my birthday gifts, a thin silver chain with a heart pendant made of amber and tiny earrings with ruby hearts. She cut my hair and dyed it, spiked high with blue gel, sprayed the spikes gold, and we climbed out my bedroom window, sat on the roof, and watched the moon fade. Tell me a secret, Susie, she said. All I could think of was, I want to meet Pavarotti. She took my hand. My mother thinks I'm strange, she said. I'm in love with two old men, Yul Brynner and Richard Burton. She smiled as she said their names. Number 2, the blind date. Yul Brynner rang your doorbell yesterday, I said. He was the king of Siam in scarlet silk and gold brocade. His shaved head gleamed in the porch light. Excuse me, are you Anne? He asked. His voice made you shiver. Even Richard Burton might not have the same effect. You couldn't speak. You nodded yes instead. I'm the date your cousin Sue arranged, he said. You couldn't answer anything. He smiled, his teeth white and sharp. Are you ready? Shall we go? His limousine was black, the seats red and velvet plush. You still never said a word. At midnight, you drank champagne together. He toasted you, recited poems, taught you how to play croquet by midnight. At dawn, he fed you breakfast with a silver spoon, pink salmon on toast, and blueberries and cream. Then he took you home. At the door, he bowed and held your hand against his cheek. His skin was cool and smooth as amber. Annie sighed and hugged her knees. Tell me about your secret birthday party, she said. I frowned. What secret birthday party? And suddenly, she only smiled and waited. Then suddenly, I understood. And then, of course, she tells her about her birthday party. So that's where I'm going to stop. So thank you very much. That was fun.
Thank you.
You're getting applause here.
Yeah, that was for my friend Mary Ann, by the way, who couldn't come.
Okay, I don't know. I guess Bob is still offline. Our third reader, and hopefully we will get Bob before the end, but if not, he will be on a different evening, is Kathy McGoldrick. Kathy has a BA in English and an MFA in writing from the State University of New York at Buffalo, EA, during which time she was published in several literary magazines and journals. She retired about 6 years ago as Director of Services for the Cattaraugus County Department of Social Services. And before COVID, she traveled to Europe, Asia, Australia, and New Zealand. And I am going to, there we go.
Yes.
Hi, everybody. It's good to see you all. My sister died about a year ago. Having a sibling die is very traumatic, I guess. So I have a couple poems about it, and this is one of them. It's called Gone May for my sister Michelle. If my youngest sister had her way, she would still be alive. And we would remember how summer began, me holding her hand, walking down our side street. where the newish homes had finally taken root and the dad planted trees, fuzzed chartreuse. To Maybeck's for the lime green twin towered popsicles, dripping slow to our fingers down 2 wooden sticks. And because I would tell her that my granddaughter, running and falling, just chipped her front tooth, Michelle and I would remember when she jumped from the couch, hanging onto her motley clown, faces on either side of its head, one sad, one supposed to be happy, hit the coffee table and rammed her tooth up the gum. She had a harlequin green upper lip through July. If only it was just the house that was gone now, frogs in the window wells, grass snakes after them. If my sister had her way, it would be a slightly bruised May, when our hearts were still young enough to beat right. This is a poem called Everywhere I Go, All I Ever Smell Is Ass, which is, of course, partly my imagination and partly a fixation, like when I hear of an ex-president on a plane from Florida heading to a hacked up stump speech, his suit pants stuck up there halfway to Iowa. And after gassing the half-beast, I get back into my Subaru and get a whiff of myself from the heated seat. And NPRing the news, imagine I can smell the lather gathering in the crack of the Western-dressed prime minister shattering windows into the eyes of children, and the sweet sweat glazing the mad bantam balls of those bombing back, taking the piss out. And how back home black robes absorb beer farts. And packed pews excuse the rub of a double-creased, flappy, vaguely pea-scented pant leg. It's as though the memory foam on the seat of my desk chair has heard it all, and neither will I be absolved. And this is a newer poem it was called To the Gazelle, a gazelle to the father of my daughters, but Judy convinced me that it's not a true gazelle. Gazelle, is that how we say it?
Guzzle.
So, to the father of my daughters. Now, with so few hormones left in this house, past 50, it sometimes smells inconsolable, this house. Sour, the material having lost its young sweetness, the wood going drier, the swagger and strut built into this house, tamed by some tough years, rain, snow, sun, and bliss, born into it, daughters pitched high fly in this house, from their earliest cries to the storms of young women, sobs, screams, slammed doors, sometimes rocked this house. But I held them, smelled them every step of the way, bundled them, let them tunnel, let them leave this house and me, alone and in breath with the creaks, the indolent summer tweaks of day weaving light in this house, and the plum skin of December twilight stretching along the long and leggy rooms of this house. Now and then, a roasting chicken mingles with the lingering, handsome cherry musk from the stove warming this house. And if there is another summer, the peonies may remember their scent sashaying through the patched screens in this house, heady. All these homely accidents of love or its loss, here all these years later, still, I'm sorry I had to take this house you loved from you, if not ever me, in the separation to grow our girls in this house without you and to learn to live alone and out loud in this house.
Nice one.
I really like the poem. We need to find a word for these guzzles that are not following the rule of that last word of each couplet, because
There's lots of them out there now.
it's just not following enough of the rules.
Right. I have a series of poems called In These Times, and there's one for every month except December at this point. I'm going to read 2 of those, one for May and one for June. Under the spate of rain, a smash of daffodils, their long-stemmed grace trounced by torrent after torrent of unrequited storm, that just can't finally finish. When it stops, May stretches up slow, steeped in the lime green keen of tree frogs, and from the veranda, Viridian stretches as far as the eye can see, deeped up by forest, deeper yet by hunter. There is a lover's name in every shade of green, each just a little too late. Their mud-pooled footprints walking away toward June. And this is June. In these times, June. The way in the morning woodwork in the kitchen gathers light to make honey. The way from the notch of late morning, a quick veil of sun-dabbed drizzle gently folds in on the shoulder of summer. The way in the longest day yellows insist. Lemon peonies dripping petals, the faces of daisies, an outburst of buttercups. The way the girl, autistic, holds the flower beneath my chin, and after shaking as though the breeze has got her, says, "You like butter?" And this is the last one I'll read. This is relatively new too, and this is for my husband. The Dilemma of Bread. I'm going to take a drink of water here. Catch my breath. On one particular morning in the drizzle of days here, I smell the bread just out of the oven. "Is it ready to slice?" I ask. Astonished, he says, "You want to cut the new loaf instead of finishing the old?" In the kitchen, I mumble. "There you go," he pronounces from another room, grumbling again. "You know, I try hard." "I know you do. You make wonderful bread. Then when it's stale, we eat it." I don't slice the heel. His father, scraping, not peeling potatoes, waiting for a son to be born in London during the Blitz, scraping wallpaper off the walls to burn to keep them from getting chilblains. My mother, Buffalo after the war, and the sacrifices of sustenance moved to the sacrifices of soul, to the suburb. The dandelionless lawns after the boys came home, took the jobs back, married the girls lifeless. The good roof, good food was her promise. It would be different now for my sisters and me. We were lucky. We carry it, my husband and I, but wear it different. I don't wear a hat, even in the rain, but if I did, I tip it to him for trying to save the warming world, for our grandchildren, for our separate children blown across the globe. I will fly to a sunny place to meet my daughters. He will not join me. Air miles, climate crisis. But I go because every so often I need to smell them, like needing to smell fine dirt. Something like damp hope, like smelling that fresh loaf on the wet morning in a series of rainy days when the world is warming and when, common and rapacious as I am, I still have the luxury of growing old. Thanks.
Well, it looks like Bob did not get on. I'm very sad about that. But we will fit him in on Tuesday. If we have to go long, we'll go long. And Monday is the reading at the library. Shannon, Leslie, Steve, me, and Allison Koffler, who is here in the shadow. And then the rest of the group, which is Elizabeth, Joyce, Helen, Nancy, and I hope Bob, will be on Tuesday evening. So I'll see you all, or I'll see my group tomorrow. I hope your groups are all going very well. And I will sign off. Good night. Good
Right.
night.
Nice reading, Kathy.